Welcome to Psych Student Reacts. In this series, I react to TikTok videos related to mental health. How this works is I search in the TikTok search bar for various topics related to mental health, and I scroll through the top videos and react to them in real time, and I'll even pause and kind of explain and even give my own 2 cents or experience on the topic. Hey, what's up, fam? So, I know that was kind of an informal way of starting, but thank you for tuning in to, I believe, the 5th episode of Psych Student Reacts. The week that I'm filming this episode is a little chaotic for me, so I apologize for being pretty informal because why not? This weekend, I am attending my college graduation for my master's in psychology. The reality is that I still have class until the end of June, but at which point I will receive my degree. And yeah, so I'm really super excited for this weekend. There's going to be so many cool, fun events. And obviously, it will be shared as as I feel comfortable. Anyways, so once again, welcome to the 5th episode of Psych Student Reacts. And this week, the theme that I decided to look up on TikTok is coping mechanisms for anxiety. There's no real reason why I decided to look this up specifically. It's just the first thing that really came into my head. I'm like, you know what? Let's do coping mechanisms. And then I was like, let's go ahead and just add anxiety in there. So, because I feel like that's pretty common, and that's something that even I've been thinking about a lot as my upcoming trip is happening. I, kind of developed travel anxiety, and it's almost like a mix of like super excitement, to just basic general anxiety about traveling, making sure that you have everything that you need and making sure you don't forget anything because everybody at least forgets one thing. And then just also the traveling type, it's just the getting from point A to point B. If anybody has ever experienced travel anxiety before, then you might understand. You might totally understand. And maybe you might find out that you might think that you've never had travel anxiety, but after today, you might find out that you have experienced travel anxiety. But we're not looking at specifically travel anxiety. We are looking at all forms of anxiety. So let's just go ahead and get started and see what happens.
I'm a psychologist, and here's the secret to stop feeling anxious right now. Your brain gives you all kinds of thoughts because it loves to help you. It gives you neutral thoughts like, hey, it's pizza for dinner tonight. When neutral thoughts like this one appear and you don't have a big reaction to them, they fade away. Your brain also gives you scary thoughts, like your heart palpitations are a heart attack. You hate this thought, you want to get rid of it. Your brain gets excited and thinks, wow, that was important, I better send more of those. More scary thoughts come. You hate them and you try to get rid of them. More come and they keep coming. The more you try to get rid of them, the more your brain gives you. This is because what you focus on is what becomes powerful. If you can let the thoughts be there without trying to get rid of them, they will burn out and fade away. When you do this, you're helping your brain learn that these thoughts are not important. And when it does, you will feel less anxious. I'm Dr. Kieran. Follow to learn more.
I have not followed this person's account before. I mean, I am not following anybody, I think, on this TikTok account that I'm using, but it's very good points, and it is a lot of times during like there's certain types of therapies. Let me get my words together. A lot of times there are certain types of therapies, such as like cognitive behavioral therapy, or even just like the cognitive perspective altogether. It's about rewiring our thoughts, rewiring our thought processes. And in order to do that, you have to come to like a point of awareness of how, like, you have to separate the two, the emotions that your thoughts come up A lot of the times I like to use journaling as an example. It helps you monitor your emotions and the thoughts that you had as those emotions occurred, and vice versa. If you felt a certain way and then that made you think of certain things, and then that just added on top of your anxiety. So, that's just like one example, but like that's like the most basic, most generic one, because it is almost like a template that anybody can almost experience in their own way. Okay. Okay. So, this kind of took a plot. This one took a plot twist for me, because I thought that he was going to bring up the holding an ice cube in your palm really tightly. That's a good one, but then he switched it up on me and was like, he puts it in his mouth. And I'm like, wait a minute, that's actually pretty convenient. That way you don't have like a dripping water mess all through your hand. But but it still does the same thing. And he literally explained it. It brings you right back to the present. It helps you be able to like ground yourself in the moment, so that way you can separate your emotions from your thoughts, essentially. So it brings you back into the moment. This action here, this is what's happening right now. Why am I thinking about that type of situation, if that makes any sense? But that's a good idea too. I mean, anybody who likes to eat ice anyways is probably not even gonna they're not gonna hesitate to not do that. I mean, that's probably what I would rather do too, is put an ice cube in my mouth rather than holding it in my hand. But I'm interested in seeing like the statistics on if both of those methods work equally, or if one works better than the other. So let's move on.
Okay, a symptom of anxiety that actually isn't talked enough about is continually occupying your mind with music, podcasts, TV shows, whatever it is, so that you can avoid your own thoughts. A lot of times when we struggle with anxiety, being with our own thoughts can be very, very triggering. This is why strategies like meditation might feel like it's not a good fit for you. Okay.
True. True. I've never thought about this, and I don't think that this has actually even been like empirically discussed either. Maybe it has. Surely it has. But a lot of times, we see a lot of memes, I'm sure, about, having to have like a certain TV show on in the background to like, just drown out the silence or background noise. And this is something that even I am guilty of myself. I mean, it's not something to be guilty of, by the way. It's really not. But there are certain periods of time where I would constantly have to have music playing, especially, and I noticed it, especially during the times of my life whenever I felt like I didn't have control. Not really control, but that I felt like I didn't have a good grasp on, where I was going, or even just who I was. Times that I had struggled, to be honest. And during those periods of time, I was constantly drowning myself in music or something, a podcast or a TV show. Or even if it was also just like I didn't want to be alone. I didn't want to feel like I was alone, and the only way to not feel alone was to have sound on. But also, like this creator was talking about, or what she was saying, is that it's being, you're afraid to be with your own thoughts. You're afraid of where your thoughts can take you. And I've also been there. I've been there. I struggled a lot with letting my thoughts get the best of me, and I would spin myself into a hole. Essentially, I would dig my own hole. I would spin myself into a coma, and it wouldn't be productive. So that's something that is worth talking about. The discussions are really there. Do I feel like everybody who decides to drown out silence is experiencing a symptom of anxiety? No. There's a lot of people that I know where music is just a central part of them. It is like they're a focal part of their personality, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And especially also with or like certain podcasts or TV shows. Obviously, there are other indicators that can show that you have anxiety, and there's ways that you can figure that out by actually receiving the proper help. But it's not really anything to be worried about. Let's move on. These short videos they know what they're doing, because they know that people aren't really going to sit here and watch something for like a whole minute most of the time. So they're going to get a lot of views. But aside from that, this is a really interesting, or not interesting, but I mean, it's a really common practice. And this is something that it does make a lot of sense. It's almost relevant to the tapping methods. Like, I'm sure you guys, everybody has seen like those ads on like Instagram and stuff. Where I'm like, I keep tapping my glasses, where you tap your face for anxiety or meditation, or certain things like that. And like, that works too. I love the tapping method. I don't practice it enough, to be honest. I would love to get more into it. Let me know in the comments if you've ever done the tapping method, and if you think that the tapping method works. Anyways, so yeah, this is a really good practice. I would recommend it. As a matter of fact, I will probably try it for my travel anxiety. My sister, who's traveling with me, and my spouse, they're probably going to think that I'm crazy, but I like to be soothed, okay? Moving on.
Here's a coping skill for anxiety you may not have tried yet already. What you see me doing here is a technique called tapping. Based off research, there are these meridian points or spots on the body that can send calming signals to your amygdala. Now, the key point of this practice is acknowledgement. Acknowledgement of what is causing you distress. So, an example of what that might look like is, if I was doing this exercise, I'd say something like, I'm feeling anxious, but I choose to relax right now. I'm feeling scared, but I choose to feel at peace right now. I'm feeling worried, but I choose to focus on what is in my control right now. So you can go about this as long as you need. That will vary from person to person, and you can also switch it up and do both sides of the body, and it's just a very similar technique, like so. Here's a coping skill for
Yep.
anxiety.
So, like I said, I brought that up in the last portion. So yeah, this is the tapping method, and like I said, it works. It feels good. Actually, I have a headache right now, and whenever I was tapping on my head, like, that made it feel, I could feel like so much more relief. But yeah, it's a great method. If you're interested, look into it. You could literally just Google the tapping method, and I'm sure that tons of information will come up. But yeah, or you can even use TikTok and type in like the tapping method in the search bar, and I'm sure there's several videos that will pop up.
I'm going to show you how you're making your anxiety worse, and you're going to be so mind blown that it wasn't obvious to you before this video. Here is a reenactment of essentially what you're doing right now.
Feeling really anxious in my body right now. I think there's something wrong.
I must be dying. I don't know if my future's gonna be okay. Everything looks negative. What should I do? You're right. Oh my God. I feel that feeling in my body. There must be something really wrong. I don't know what to do. This is just so hard and scary. Just in case you didn't get that, you're joining your inner child in its fear instead of comforting it, instead of reparenting it. Imagine if you were with an actual child and they were crying and screaming, and you started crying and screaming too. Obviously, the child would feel worse. Here's an example of what you will learn to do from following my videos. I have this really scary feeling in my body. I'm feeling nervous. I just don't know what to do. I know, and I understand. Remember, we have been through this before. Let's just take a moment, put our hand on our chest, a hand on the place that feels anxious, breathe with it together, and I will help you to feel okay again. This is very temporary. That wise, higher self version part of you, whatever you want to call it, can come in and comfort that younger part of you so that it no longer has to perpetuate the fear and the anxiety. I'm going to teach you how to grow that inner parent, that wise part of you, so that it's always there to take care of you, just like your parents were there to take care of you when you were little and you were scared. So follow to learn more and subscribe to my free anxiety guides. The link is in my bio.
So, this is also a really interesting concept that probably hasn't become very common until, honestly, TikTok. Like a lot of things, like I rarely heard about the whole inner child, like wellness until TikTok. And then even more so as I got more involved into healing type of communities and becoming a part of like the holistic wellness space. So, the inner child is kind of like a perspective that you can take to heal, especially healing certain types of childhood trauma. Or even just past trauma altogether. Because, what is the past? Our younger selves. Technically, this is a way, like, I love to think of things in a lot of different perspectives. And I like to think of healing your past trauma or healing your inner child as almost a sense of time traveling. Because, if you can't physically travel back to that specific point in time and change it, the least that you can do is enter a meditative state and envision the person that you were then. Because there are periods of times in my life when I can think back to those moments of who I was in that moment. What kind of thoughts was I having in that moment? How was I coping in that moment? Like, what kind of coping mechanisms did I know then? How did I do that? Now, whenever you enter that meditative state and you think back to that previous version of yourself, now you, as yourself, as your older, wiser self, you can tell yourself then how you can get through that, and you can re-envision that moment and properly handling it. And in a sense, that heals a part of your inner child, that heals a part of that past trauma. Now, I'm not saying like this, that's just something that how I made sense of things for myself. But obviously, whenever you go through therapy, you are finding what practices work best for you, then you can make better sense of it in yourself. But that's just how it makes sense for me. And like I like to think about things like that. Like I like to think about, if we can't really physically go to the past and change the past, the least that we can do it to heal ourselves within for our current moment, for ourselves. Like I'm trying to get that together. Okay. For our current personality, our current stature, wisdom, whatever, we can go back and heal that. It makes us stronger now, if that makes sense. How it almost, it relates in the sense that whenever you've experienced childhood trauma and how that goes on to affect your relationships and whatnot, if you heal that, it gets better now. Anyways, I'm getting off on a tangent, but you know what I'm saying.
Here are 5 quick steps for instant anxiety relief. Step number 1, when you actually find yourself struggling with anxiety, stop and congratulate yourself. Literally say, I see that you are struggling with anxiety. Good job for catching it. Step 2, I want you to pick a point directly across the room in which you're in and stare at it. Try not to blink, and I want you to count 10 deep breaths while you ask yourself this question. What am I experiencing with all 5 senses? What am I seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling, and touching? A lot of the times when we're suffering from anxiety, we're all hunched over. We need to change our posture. So I want you to stand up nice and straight. Roll your shoulders back, puff out your chest, and keep your chin parallel to the ground. What you're doing is trying to appear like you're menacing, as if there's some kind of threat staring us down, and we need to fight or flight. While in that posture, still focusing on your breath, repeat this affirmation. My mind is centered in on peace and awareness, and I'm grateful for this space. Step 5, whatever it was that triggered your anxiety, the thing that you're kind of concerned about, I want you to see, picture, visualize that thing turning out as best as possible. Be supremely creative and actually embellish and exaggerate that turnout, and feel within yourself the emotions of excitement and happiness and gratitude for how amazing things worked out. With all those steps, your anxiety has no chance. You want more of this kind of stuff? Be sure to follow. Here are 5 quick steps for
This is totally unrelated, but does he not look like Jerry from Rick and Morty? For some reason, he gives me massive like Jerry vibes in his appearance. But anyways, that's beside the point. Okay, so I also wanted to note the Claire de Lune Debussy sound. Twilight fans, if you know, you know. All right. Anyways, okay, so this perspective isn't going to work for everybody. It only works for people who really truly believe in the power of mindset and manifestation. I'm one of those people. I completely believe in that. I believe that I completely changed my future. There's a lot of paths that I once crossed that potentially could have made my life the worst thing ever. But I took control of my life, and I, controlled my destiny. I wasn't going to allow external factors to decide my destiny, and I took that power into myself. Now, so this is kind of mixed with a lot of really good therapeutic practices as well. But then again, there's some people, depending on where you live, the type of community that you live in, the type of people that you really work with, you probably won't notice a lot of people being very open-minded. Now, if you are in an open-minded place, then that's great. I'm almost envious in a way, but you have to work with what you have, and you have to be able to help people understand the different practices and what exactly that means, because in certain areas, religious practices don't really see types of mindset and manifestation stuff as a very good thing. But that's on the topic. 5 steps for instant anxiety relief. I know there was a point whenever he was mentioning at the beginning, you want to look at something across the room and you want to stare at it and don't break contact. That is, a part of a grounding exercise to help bring yourself back into the present. And then it goes all the way to the end where, you want to visualize that thing that's bothering you, that's worrying you, that's causing you anxiety, and you're going to envision that or picture it in the best possible outcome, the absolute best case scenario. And I like that. I love doing that because that really does affect your anxiety in the best way possible. That can turn that worry into excitement. And so that's something that that I have always used in these cases whenever I have travel anxiety. I'm worried about the things that could potentially go wrong. But then you start shifting your perspective, your perception, and your mindset to this is going to be such an amazing trip. I'm going to see so many amazing things. So much new experience I cannot wait to have. I'm picturing this creating so many opportunities for me and not at all entertaining the negative thoughts. So, and I've done that with, and like all of my other trips as well. You know, I have, when I was about to fly for the first time, obviously I had the thoughts that every first time flyer, I'm sure, has, like, what if the plane crashes? Or, you know, what if I miss my flight? But, you know, the closer that it got, the more excited I became, the more I'm just like, man, this is the first time. I'm so excited. Like, I get to get on a plane for the first time. I get to fly for the first time. I get to see what it looks like from the window of the plane for the first time. Like, it was all a really good experience, and I'm still here. Nothing bad happened. So, but yeah, I'm interested in what else this guy really has to say. But I don't use TikTok on my computer except for making this content. So yeah. Anyways, let's move on. Let's get like one more TikTok in.
With anxiety, try this. Next time you struggle with anxiety attacks, get Vicks Vapor Rub.
Listen, you need to go watch his full video. I thought it was the biggest bunch of crud, but I gave it a try because you'll try anything when you're having an anxiety attack. You need to do this. If you're in anxiety, you take some Vicks, you place it right here, kind of right at the throat. What happens is you begin to physically feel that menthol, you begin to smell it in and take it into your senses, and your brain begins to focus on that new, bigger sensation, and it physically helps you ease out of that anxious energy that's zinging through you. You begin to breathe more deeply, your pulse begins to like slow out of that crazy butterfly. This literally works. It's like a stop sign for anxiety attacks. You need to go try it.
So yeah, again, this is like the same concept as any of the grounding techniques, as like, it's like the same concept as the ice cube technique. Ice cube in the palm, ice cube in the mouth. I'm not exactly sure, you know, again, about the empirical evidence on this. However, if it works, it works. I can understand the concept. I can understand like how it's supposed to work. So I wouldn't even doubt that it doesn't work, or that it does work. Like I would even try it. I just don't have any Vicks Vapor Rub. But, I mean, and honestly, that kind of makes a lot of sense. If you're somebody who likes to follow like chakras and stuff, then you know that like your throat chakra is also right there. And that basically the placement that she was talking about, putting that is like right where your root chakra is going to be found. So, you know, that I would imagine that would cause it to feel like it's opening up. You know, you might be able to feel like you can talk louder. You might feel like you can breathe better. I mean, and obviously, like there's not actually any like improvement, but it feels better. And that's what, you know, anxiety does though. Anxiety makes you feel like you can't breathe anymore. It makes you feel like you're dying. But all in reality, you're not. But that's what this does, is help you bring yourself out of that moment, out of that panic, so you can calm yourself, ground yourself, and see where you're at. Well, I think that pretty much concludes this week's episode. Like I said, this weekend I will be walking across the stage and celebrating with the rest of my class. I will share my experience whenever I record the next episode, maybe just a little bit, like a small little recap, because not everybody's going to care. But anyways, thank you so much for tuning in and watching the 5th episode of Psych Student Reacts. And as always, I will see you all next week for episode 6. Don't know what the topic's going to be yet, but we'll see when we get there. All right. Bye.